Welcome to Philosophy of Action. This is a secondary part to the initial question on demographic collapse and the illusion of what I would say is living standards, and that really isn't a way to judge the life of your children. This time I want to talk about the fact there is no grand conspiracy going on, just some bad assumptions. There's another explanation for the demographic collapse that a lot of people talk about, especially people in more ideological or conspiratorial places. It goes something like this. Western elites supposedly decided in a coordinated way to reduce European birth rates while encouraging mass migration in order to make space for the population growth elsewhere. A kind of long-term Malthusian population management scheme. I understand why this story is tempting. It gives a clear villain and a clear plan, but I think it assumes way too much coordination and foresight, and way too many people agreeing on problems and solutions. If this were really a coherent Western conspiracy, then why are nations like Japan, South Korea, China, and even Russia facing the same demographic collapse? These aren't European liberal societies in the same sense, and they're certainly not all following the same ideological script, but yet they're running into the same wall, and now desperately trying to reverse it. That strongly suggests this isn't one master plan, it's a pattern of shared mistakes. Yes, it is true that European countries are experiencing large-scale demographic change through immigration. And yes, a lot of policymakers clearly assume that populations are basically interchangeable, that education alone would make everyone function the same way, share the same norms and produce the same outcomes. That assumption has been proven false. Not because it is morally better or worse, but because different cultures, histories and social norms actually do shape behavior across generations. You can't just swap populations like parts of a machine and expect the same result. A lot of institutions are now quietly realizing that and starting to backpedal. So what do I think actually happened? After the Second World War, Western societies developed what was often called the post-war consensus. It was built on a very optimistic assumption about human nature, about progress, about stability, and especially about the idea that history's big conflicts were basically over. There was this feeling we've won. Now we just manage things. The future will be more or less take care of itself. That mindset shaped everything: pension systems, economic policy, cultural attitudes towards family, even the idea that you could redesign society without triggering long-term consequences. But if you create a system where the state replaces children as old age security, you shouldn't be surprised when people have fewer children. If you assume the future will always be richer and easier, you shouldn't be surprised when people stop thinking in generational terms. If you assume humans are infinitely adaptable and interchangeable, you shouldn't be surprised when reality disagrees and your society destabilizes when you import people that are not necessarily in alignment with the existing cultural values. None of this requires a grand conspiracy. It just requires a shared set of bad assumptions about reality, repeated for decades by different elites in different countries for different reasons. And now all those failures are hitting us all at once. Shrinking populations don't fix economies. Replacing populations doesn't fix social cohesion. And trying to reverse the trend is incredibly hard once the cultural incentives are gone to keep these systems in place. So everyone starts blaming everyone else. But the uncomfortable truth is, almost everyone played some role in this, whether through short-term thinking, political convenience, or simply accepting a story about the world that wasn't true. Which brings me to the real conclusion. We're not going to fix this with small policy tweaks. Tax credits and subsidies might help at the margins, but we won't solve our civilizational problem. What's actually required is a cultural reset. A re-evaluation of every single value we hold dear, of what we think as good or as bad, or as a good life or as a bad life, of what responsibility means, of whether we see ourselves as just consumers in the present or as links in a chain that extends into the future and the past. Because if everyone was wrong about their basic assumptions, as we can see globally, then everything built on those assumptions deserves to be questioned if we want to fix the problems we're dealing with today.